Hi there. Thanks for joining me today. Sometimes people will say things or respond to something with a kind of catchy phrase, and it'll stick in your mind. That was, if anybody remembers, the Art Link Ladder show. It was called Link Letter, I believe it was show, and he would often say, "Kids say the darndest things," and that's true. I've had some experience from that. Kids saying the darndest things is different from an adult saying the darndest things. So let me give you some examples and then a scripture to kind of sum it all up. One year, and this was back in the early 2000s, I believe, and one year, Floyd and I were homeschooling, and our cousin, this was in Alabama, had a very smart and alert 4-year-old son, and I'll just call him DJ. And in preschool lessons during the time, Floyd was dealing with that, and I would at some point. But we also were homeschooling Winston and Zoe in the 5th grade, and we had many a days when Floyd and I would just have to leave the room and bust out laughing somewhere else after one of the little quips that DJ would say. Okay, when he first started coming to our house, Floyd would keep calling him Winston. Okay, and that's our son's name. And it got so bad one day the DJ said, "What's the matter, Mr. Floyd? You forgot to take your medicine?" Okay, and that was funny. It was. Another day, DJ and I were alone in the house, and Floyd and Winston and Zoe were outside. They were doing some yard work, and we had a helper there, Ricky. And Ricky, at one of his arms was amputated just below the elbow, but he was strong and a real hard worker. And I'm gonna tell you, I've seen him take out a tree stump that me and Floyd couldn't get up, and he could do as much work as two men with four arms between them. Okay, so I'm in the house, me and DJ, doing some schoolwork, and the doorbell rang, and then DJ just shot to the door. And as I was coming behind him, as I said, "DJ, who is it?" Because I didn't like him to kind of go to the door, but I couldn't run as fast as he could. And so when I said, "DJ, who is it?" He said, "Miss Shar, it's that man that got his arm cut off when the train ran over it on the railroad tracks." Okay, and that was true. And it was a bit embarrassing, but Ricky understood. So, sometimes children are so naive that they don't see the seriousness of what they're saying, or a particular situation either. Because Winston and Zoe, all right, this was a case with them. They were 3 and 4. Winston was 4 and Zoe was 3. And they had to be rushed to the hospital because they went into my mom's bedroom cabinet and took some of her pills for vertigo. They only took enough to make them sleepy, and neither one of them was hurt. But my mama and I took them. No, I think I told my mama to stay home because I didn't know how long it was going to be at the emergency room, and I stayed all night with them. And they got Winston to drink some charcoal because he had taken the most of it, but Zoe wouldn't take it. But anyway, it did come out of the system. And so I don't know, sometime later, months or a year later, I was driving with the both of them in the back seat of the van, and I heard Winston say to Zoe, "Hey Zoe, remember the time we got to ride in the ambulance?" And Zoe said, "Yeah, that was cool." Okay, now I exploded. Started pulled to the curb to impress upon them the terror of that night for me and my mama. And I know they wondered, what's wrong with her? Okay. To them, that was a legitimate and a truthful statement. Now in my life, I have observed children do not have a monopoly on saying the darndest things. And I'll share an experience, okay, and talk about the consequences sometimes when we as adults don't pay attention to what we say. There was a time when Floyd and I had a tenant in a house in Detroit, and the house was inherited property from my dad's mom, and it was inherited by me and my sister and my brother. And because I was the only one living in Detroit, I was the manager, and it was a 2-story house with a full basement, and what had become a low rent district. But in its heyday, when my grandmother and grandfather had purchased it, it was a home that was in a middle class neighborhood and it had a bay window, a double lot, it was true. It was a very nice property at the time, and she had kept it up. So this was, going into rental. And this was actually my first experience with rental, but my mom had done a lot of rentals, and so I had seen her and had been to court with her on getting tenants out. It wasn't something that I wanted to do, but Floyd and I had decided that we would not move in that neighborhood, but we would rent it out. Okay. So I had been trying to reach the tenant for nearly 2 weeks, because the rent was overdue. And so whenever I call, various folk answered the phone. Once a woman, once another man, but my tenant wasn't there. Okay. So when I stopped by, a woman answered the door. And so I didn't say anything, to her, because my beef, so to speak, it was with the guy that I had rented to, because I had rented it to one individual only. Okay. One individual. So when I finally reached him, the conversation went like this. Joe, and I don't remember his name. I said, "I'm calling because your rent is overdue. When will I have this month's rent?" He said, well, I'm not sure. My tenants in the basement haven't paid their rent, so I don't have the rent to pay you. Okay. He started talking about he had sublet. Okay, so I'm trying to bring it down. Okay. But what he said was it was illegal because it wasn't in his contract, and it was just dumb that he would do that, and there were consequences. So, Floyd and I talked about that, and so we said we really didn't want to deal with this rental kind of situation, especially trying to deal with the trying to be able to collect rent. Just wasn't what we wanted to do. Okay. So a few months later, we sold the house with the tenant in it. Okay. So for us, what I get out of that, and I hope you do too, is that we have to be careful, because the things that come out of our mouth a lot of times are the results of the actions that we're taking. So we really need to be discerning about the actions that we take and about what we say. And James 1:26 says, if any man among you seems to be religious and bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is vain. All right. And I'm going to tell you one other thing about the tenant that was in there. He told me that he was a preacher. Okay. So I had to really think about, now, if he's doing this to me, how is he being a representative of Jehovah? And it made me question his walk. So we don't want to do anything or say anything that make people question our representation of the Most High. He's holy, and he wants us to be holy. Thanks for listening. Shalom. Oh, remember to like and share.